Hello, we are live. This is Pam Bartha, and I'm super excited to spend this time with you. Sorry, we're a couple of minutes late. We had some technical issues. Hopefully it is working. So as you start to join, if you can please let me know that you can hear me. Hello, Danielle. Can you let me know that you can hear me? And I'm going to get started right away. Awesome. Thank you. So this is Pam Bartha, and I am super excited to spend this time with you. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you the very best diet that you can follow if you're suffering with multiple sclerosis. And I'm not just going to share the diet, but I'm also going to share with you, hi Megan, so you guys can hear. Yeah, you can hear. I tried to get on with my phone and for some reason it would not stream. That's why I'm a couple of minutes late here, but thank goodness for the computer. So I decided to use the computer and it's working. So my name is Pam Bartha, and I'm the author of Become a Wellness Champion and the founder of Live Disease Free. And I'm super excited to spend this time with you because I'm going to be sharing why it is so important to follow a low carbohydrate and higher healthy fat eating plan while you are recovering from multiple sclerosis. It's very, very powerful. For those of you that have not met me yet, my name is Pam Bartha, and about 28 years ago, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And I was just 28 years old. It was a long time ago. And at that time, I thought I was a healthy person, and I found out very quickly that I had this debilitating disease, multiple sclerosis, and I was told there was nothing that I could do to stop the progression of the MS. Well, thank goodness I found out that there was, and I learned that multiple sclerosis is caused by chronic silent infections in the body. And that was a really pivotal moment for me. I read a book written by a medically trained doctor who understood that these infections cause not just multiple sclerosis, but all kinds of other chronic diseases inside our body. And when we treat those infections, the disease stops and we have a ton of recovery. So luckily I caught it early on in my diagnosis. And thank you so much. I was going to ask you guys, please interact with me because I'm looking at this little green dot on my computer and I love, thank you so much, the hearts, the thumbs up, because that's what I get for the interaction. So my story, it is a story of hope. It is a story of second chances. And what's happened since then is we have this growing army of wellness champions that are recovering. Thank you for all the love. And I know that many of the wellness champions are right now on this video, also the Facebook Live, and I'm super excited that you're here. And so what's so important before we figure out what is the best way to eat, number one is we have to understand what is causing multiple sclerosis. Because when we understand what causes MS, then we select everything that we do to be treating the cause. So I have done a 5-part Facebook Live video series, and I've also put this up on YouTube. And I want you guys, if you haven't seen it yet, you have to go back and watch the replays, because when you understand the role that fungal overgrowth plays with chronic disease, but also multiple sclerosis, with all chronic disease, and also Lyme disease, and also parasites and viruses, yes, they're present. Are they the main cause, the main focus? Probably not, but definitely they're involved also. So when we understand, when it's really clear to us that we are loaded with infection, then it helps us to understand why a certain eating plan would be more beneficial for us to recover. So today I'm going to share, first of all, with you what this eating plan is. And I'm going to share, thank you for all the love, I'm going to share what this eating plan is. Also the research. There is research starting to mount, confirming what we're seeing in the Wellness Champions. And then also, research is great, but you really want to know if it works. So I'm going to share with you a ton of successes of my current class. So I'm a coach, and since I've recovered from MS, I love to help other people recover from multiple sclerosis, but also other chronic disease. So we have this big, beautiful class of wellness champions, and I run about 3 classes a year, and they're from all over the world. So right now, Jamaica and Israel and the United States, Canada, Australia, the UK, And I think we're going to get a student joining us right away from New Zealand. We've had students in the past from New Zealand. So this is truly a global class. And you're going to hear the successes, because research is great, but we want to know if it truly works. And so this is going to give you some really amazing insights. And you only see these insights when you actually see people putting it into practice. So that's the course of the talk today. Number one, the eating plan. So before I start, I would love for you to share this with other people that are searching for answers. You know, people that are not just dealing with chronic disease of multiple sclerosis, but maybe other diseases. There's cancer. I'm doing a course right now on brain solutions, and one of the doctors was saying that right now in the United States, 1 out of every 2 men are coming down with cancer. And we know that just over the past 20 years, for women, the number of women that are dying of neurological degenerative diseases has gone up almost 700%, 663% to be more accurate. That's what the statistic is. So we have this epidemic of chronic disease. And so what I'm sharing with you today, this eating plan, it's not just for MS. I'm going to share just a few studies that will whet your appetite. So maybe you're suffering with cancer or epilepsy or Parkinson's or ALS or some other horrible disease. You can start to do your own research, and you'll see that this eating plan is very powerful for the very same reason that it works for multiple sclerosis, because multiple sclerosis is an infectious disease. So if you didn't watch those video series that I did, it's on Facebook Live, the videos, and also on YouTube. Go back and listen to them after, because I share. And we also have this amazing resource that Danielle helped me to put together. I've done all the research, and she just cleans it all up nice for me. She's going to be posting this in the feed. And it's important for you to look at that and to share that with other people and to share it with your doctors. And at first, they'll be pretty skeptical, absolutely, but you are helping us to bring change, right? So you guys are the warriors, the wellness champions, the leaders, the trailblazers, I call you, that are helping us to bring the truth out so that we can put an end to all of this suffering. Those doctors that I followed 28 years ago, they wrote books. They are medically trained doctors, and they wrote books 30 years ago. And they knew that chronic disease and multiple sclerosis is just one of the chronic diseases, but that they are infectious diseases. When you treat the infection, the disease will stop, and you're going to have a lot of recovery. All right, so the first thing I want to do is talk a little bit about the research. So we created, or both of us created, a new page, and that is evidence that the nutritional ketogenic eating plan or low-carb eating plan is beneficial, not just for MS, but for other chronic diseases too. So I just put together a few studies, and there are many, many more studies that are available to you, but I'm just going to give you a little bit of a taste of what is coming out. And you have to understand too that it costs a lot of money to do research. And there are not a lot of agencies and companies that have money to just throw at an eating plan. So unfortunately, we're not going to see a ton of studies come out in this area because, like I said, companies have to have money to invest millions of dollars into research, and they have to have a payoff at the end because they're companies. They can't just do non-for-profit, right? So it is, unfortunately, we should see more studies, and we will in time, but I'm going to show you the evidence that it does work. So number one, this study, the title of it is The Therapeutic Potential of the Ketogenic Diet in Treating Multiple Sclerosis. And this is in progressive multiple sclerosis. So when we eat low carbs and we eat higher healthy fats, our body shifts from being a sugar burner to being a fat burner. And that's actually a very, very healthy way to live. And so when we are a fat burner, we have these substances in our body called ketone bodies. And that's what our body burns as fuel, just so you know what they are. So in the study, they said that ketones and the ketogenic diet have, however, shown positive results in several models of neurodegeneration. And despite its high fat content, because remember, for 20 years now, they've been saying follow a low-fat diet. That's the way to go. And now they're saying, no, no, no. It should be a high-fat diet, but the right kind of fat, the non-hydrogenated, the healthy fat. So they say that with this diet, despite the high fat content, the ketogenic diet is a safe and even beneficial for cardiometabolic risk factors. So for people that have heart issues, that this is a very safe and effective eating plan. And it has been in continuous use for almost a century for the treatment of epilepsy, and it's shown very good tolerability, even in children. So it's very safe. Current treatment options for multiple sclerosis affect immune function and relapse rate with little effect on disease progression. They are sometimes accomplished by significant side effects such as, remember we have the rare brain infection and certain cancers and malignancies with using our disease modifying drugs. So they're saying that they come with a lot of risk. Consequently, it could be more favorable for some patients to pursue a relatively risk-free dietary approach that has the potential to reduce disease progression without affecting immune response. That is very, very, so they're basically saying that we should really consider this because it's not going to hurt us, it's not going to affect our immune system, and it's very safe. Another study shared that I'm going to share with you is a diet mimicking fasting promotes regeneration and reduces autoimmunity and multiple sclerosis symptoms. And this is a 2016 study. We also report preliminary data suggesting that a fast mimicking diet or a chronic ketogenic state, okay, so remember the ketogenic means that we're burning, we're a fat burner, is safe, it's feasible, and potentially effective in the treatment of relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis. And then yet another study. So you can find all of these studies on that resource that I created for you, and it will be posted in the feed of this video. The third study is reduced mass and diversity of colonic microbiome in patients with multiple sclerosis and their improvement with the ketogenic diet. So that's a really big, long sentence, basically saying that they observed shifts in the type of microbes that live in the colon of MS patients using this diet. So their summary they shared, the ketogenic diet normalized concentrations of colonic microbiome. So those would be the microbes that are living in our intestines. Remember, I talked about the ecosystem. If you haven't watched my masterclass training, I talk a lot about that. And really that is why we come down with chronic disease, because our ecosystem is out of balance. So they're saying that this diet normalizes the concentration of colonic microbiome, so all the microbes that live there, after 6 months. So it's very, very powerful. And then just a couple of other things I wanted to share, because it's not just for multiple sclerosis, but one last study that is talking about multiple sclerosis is that inflammation-mediated memory dysfunction and effects of a ketogenic diet in murine model of multiple sclerosis. So this is an animal study. So they're saying here that this ketogenic diet significantly reduced brain inflammation and reversed both memory dysfunction and motor impairment in the animals that were studied. They make animal models. These animals, they make them sick with MS symptoms, and then they study. So this is something that they do all the time. And so there's huge reduction in brain inflammation and reverse both memory dysfunction and motor impairment in these animals. Since the ketogenic diet is currently available in many clinical centers throughout the world, patients with multiple sclerosis may readily benefit from this non-pharmacological treatment option. So again, they're encouraging people to follow this eating plan. It's safe and it has huge improvements in neurodegenerative diseases, multiple sclerosis. Also, I'm not going to go through the other studies, but we've known for like almost a century that it's tremendously helpful for children with epilepsy and also cancer. It's really big in the cancer world right now. Also, Parkinson's and ALS. So there are many, many different conditions that benefit from this eating plan. And it makes sense to us as far as when we understand what the cause is, when we understand that we are sick because we're loaded with infections, and if carbohydrates, if a lot of blood sugar feeds those infections, then we have stronger symptoms. And if we greatly reduce the carbohydrates, so our body is shifting away from burning glucose, and it is now shifting to burning fat, and if those infections don't like fat, then they become more quiet. I say it's like we're putting them on a fast. And when they're more quiet, they're not as active. They are not producing as much poisons and inflammation. The toxicity goes down. We start to see little improvements. We're not treating the MS yet. We're not treating the infections yet, but we're starting to weaken them so that it's easier to treat them. So now what I'd like to do is share with you what we're seeing in our students. So I have been coaching students for many years in group settings. Most of my students have multiple sclerosis. I attract a lot of people that have MS because that was my past. And so what we're seeing is that we're seeing huge improvements within the first week to 2 weeks in our students, which is really exciting. So what I'm going to share with you is in our current class of students right now, these people are on the road to recovery. They're working super hard. They are my heroes. If any of you are on joining me right now, give me a thumbs up because I am so proud of you, hearts. And these are my heroes because these are the people that are working really hard because they want their life back. But the biggest thing is that they are really big implementers. And so the eating plan, thank you so much. The eating plan is laid out for them and they're following it really well to the T. And here's the power of the eating plan. All right, so this is just the first step in recovery, but this is the power. So I'm going to share a bunch of successes with you. So these are, and I'm not going to say their names because I want to keep it confidential, but this first student, she just shared, and this is what I've been getting in the past. Most of these are just in the last week, and a few of them were in the past couple of weeks. So this student shared, my MS doc looked at my MRI results of brain, and she mentioned, my brain does not look like someone who's had multiple sclerosis for 20 years. This eating plan does work now to kill the infections. So if you've been following me for any period of time, you know that we can't just kill, it's not like the old days where you have strep throat and you just run to your doctor and you get an antibiotic and you take it and you get well. When you have chronic disease, there are many things that we have to do before we start to treat because these are chronic, well-established infections in the body. So this young lady has been laying the foundation and she's getting ready to do the killing pretty soon. Another gentleman just has been working with me in the program, found me about 2.5 weeks ago at the most, and this is what he has shared. So what we see at the beginning is when we start following this eating plan, we start to see that there's little humps and bumps along the way. So at the beginning, if they've been eating a lot of processed foods, somebody might feel really tired for the first week, and that's like a sugar withdrawal and detox. But then after that, they start to feel improvements already. So with this gentleman, he shared one day, great day. I was able to walk with a cane about 100 yards, holding my wife's hand. Felt great. Feels like the spasticity is less. So that spasticity in our calves, which is the cramping. So he's already starting to notice that it is starting to subside a little bit. And it's a little fluctuating up and down a bit. But what he shared is that overall in the past 3 weeks, he's noticed improvement in his health, specifically a little less spasticity, which is really huge. So this is not killing infection yet. This is just the eating plan. Higher energy levels and greater concentration when he's working. And then another beautiful wellness champion in Israel, she shared, my body is getting so much stronger. I can walk at home without my walker. The brain fog is completely gone. I could sleep all night without going to the bathroom. I felt as if I woke up from a long, healthy sleep. It is more than amazing. And then and then she also added that I still have not started the killing phase yet. Another student added, in 8 days of this way of eating, my muscles and bones have stopped aching, and my rosacea that was on her face has settled down. I am sleeping better and standing longer. I can now lift my left calf to stretch out my front thigh. Very happy about that. And then a few more successes, because this is the proof, right? Studies are great, but we want to see evidence. Another lady shared, my blood pressure is good from the eating plan. Another lady, or I should say her mom, because this is a young lady who is just 17 years old who has multiple sclerosis, and so her mom is sending the emails and really supporting her daughter. But just in the first week to 2 weeks, her mood is getting so much better day by day, and she's feeling more energetic day by day also. And then another young lady who's just 28 years old, and it's so tragic that we have so many beautiful young people that are coming down with these neurological diseases like MS. But she's on the right path now. So just in 2 to 3 weeks, again, before we start even treating infections, what she's noticed is that her bladder, so this was her mom writing in again, this is another lady, young lady, 28, her mom is taking care of her. And the mom shared that her bladder, the daughter's bladder has improved so much that she's sleeping through the night. Mouth no longer numb and drooping. So one side of her mouth was numb from the MS and it was drooping. And so that has totally rectified. So now she's got her beautiful smile back. And her brain fog clearing and cognitive function improving. She shared that they were visiting with friends and that their friends noticed the conversations that her daughter was having, that they were so much more clear. And she's able to move her toes, able to move her legs in her wheelchair, able to take a few steps, and being able to move in bed. So she could not even move in her bed. How brutal is that? You lay in one position all night and she couldn't move. And after starting this eating plan and just reducing the food to those infections that are making her sick, that's what it's all about. Yes, it is true that when we follow this eating plan, that we are burning fat, and it's a much more efficient fuel. So it'll be easier on our mitochondria. And I know there's this big talk about mitochondria dysfunction, but truly and honestly, the biggest reason why these people are seeing improvements is because of greatly reducing to the food to the infections that are making them sick. Another beautiful student in Jamaica. So her severe tremors in her legs have been gone for more than a month now. And her thyroid is now normal also. Huge. And that, I don't see that all the time as far as tremors just with eating plan going down that much, but I'm so proud of her. And then this really is a huge, huge quality of life that I want to share with you. So this one student wrote that she travels to see her son, but when she travels, it does require a lot of energy, right? When we travel, and when we're sick, it's double, triple the energy, right? And a lot of anxiety. So she loves to see him, and she loves to see him play hockey, but it's always work. So last weekend, something changed. So this was her just following the eating plan for a couple, 3 weeks at the most. I didn't dread the walk to the car, the grocery shopping, the trips to the rink, and constant interaction with people. The exact opposite. I welcomed all of it. Not once did I feel exhausted or drained. The walks to and from places, albeit I was still slow because she hasn't treated DMS yet, the infections, but she shared it was all so manageable. And for the first time, I didn't need my navigation system to get around town. So her brain was much more clear. She shared, I'm thinking clear, my mood is better, and I'm looking forward to everything. After the game on Saturday night, we went out for dinner and we chatted till 3 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't tired and I was able to enjoy the conversations versus just wanting to go to bed. And I am so enjoying all the things that seemed to be like work. And my handwriting has improved. You wouldn't believe the difference in my handwriting over the past few weeks, and the speed at which I can write down information has improved so much. I'm excited to start the killing phase. Still a bit more to prepare. So she's been working on the constipation. And thank you for all of the hearts. So pretty much all of my students, they have really significant constipation from those infections. And especially when we greatly reduce the food to those infections, they really like to slow things down. So before we start to kill, we want to make sure that we're eliminating all the toxins. Otherwise, we'll feel really sick. We don't want to do that. All right. So with that, number one, I shared with you some evidence, some concrete peer-reviewed science studies that are showing that this eating plan is safe. It is also neuroprotective. So it really helps people that are dealing with different types of neurological degeneration, so diseases that are causing that. And that's huge as far as helping inflammation to go down. So we've seen the research. And now you have seen just a few students that are current right now taking back their life. So there are other students that I haven't shared that are in the killing phase, and they're having even bigger shifts, because when you start to treat the infections, when you've laid out that foundation and you start to treat them, that's where we start to see really big shifts with the neurological symptoms. All right, but for today, it was all about showing you how important it is to follow this eating plan. This is what I live by. All right, it is vital. It's not something Pam made up. It is bigger than Pam. So this is what they're using for cancer, to make the cancer treatments so much more effective. This is what the autism community is using to help children recover from autism. This is what the Alzheimer's and ALS and multiple sclerosis. So this is going to be huge. It's just that I am really good at researching, and I'm really good at putting it together, and I've tested a long time ago. And my students have been following this for, I would say, at least coming on to 3 years now. So I want you to understand the power of it, all right? And now I'm going to share with you how it works. Well, actually, I shared with you how it works, but how you follow this eating plan. All right, what do you do differently than what we normally do with a healthy eating plan? What is the difference between paleo? And I might have to go more into that detail on that in the future. So paleo is a healthy way of eating, but there are still too many grams of carbs. So at the beginning, when we're setting the stage and we want to kill those infections, we're still feeding them too much. And even a Mediterranean diet, when this is the power of just getting the carbs down. So the magic lies in eating a ton of low-carb vegetables. So let me backtrack for a minute. The eating plan that we follow is called the Nutritional Ketogenic Eating Plan. And it's not a diet. I just call it a diet because that's what everybody's looking for. But it is a way of life. It is something that's going to give you energy and make you feel younger and make you recover quicker. All right, so this eating plan is the first critical step. There's many other steps, but this is the first critical step. So it's not just keto, because keto diet is about lots of healthy fat, but lots of protein and lots of dairy and very, very low vegetables. We eat a lot of vegetables, but the vegetables we pick are high in nutrition and they are low in carbohydrates. So that would be more of the greens, like the kale and the different types of lettuce and spinach and Swiss chard. And yes, broccoli and cauliflower and green beans, not the dried beans, because they would be too high in carbohydrates, but all of those vegetables that are lower in carbohydrates. So definitely not corn, definitely not sweet potatoes or yam or sweet peas, those kind of things. All of those vegetables that kind of fill us up more, no, we avoid those. We avoid all grains because we're not digesting them very well. And when we don't digest the grains, they become food for those microbes that are living in our intestines, and we do not want to keep feeding them. We do not want them to thrive inside of us. All right, so we are eating foods that really don't feed them. So lots of low-carb vegetables, healthy fats. So as far as the vegetables, a couple of cautions. If you have irritable bowel, or if you have any type of inflammatory bowel disease, you can't just start eating 3 platefuls of vegetables. You can't just start with 9 to 13 servings of vegetables a day, because it's just not going to work. You know that. So then you have to eat the vegetables that agree with you, and you may have to saute them, you may have to stir fry them, oven roast them. That's all fine. But just make sure that you listen to your body, all right? Everything I share with you is for educational purposes only. So you have to listen to your body and you have to work with somebody. But the key is that as your digestive tract starts to heal, you will be able to incorporate slowly more raw. Thank you so much for all of your love. You're going to have to incorporate, you can then incorporate more raw and more variety, but you do it as you are ready. You do it as your body tolerates it. For those of us that tolerate it, we increase up to 9 to 13 servings of vegetables per day. 9 to 13, that sounds like a lot, but yes, it is. And so I will have 3 heaping platefuls during the day, and I'll sometimes have snacks, which are vegetables, and the broccoli, the asparagus, the cauliflower, and there's a ton of others. There's different Japanese bok choy and su choy, and there's lots of other different vegetables, and cabbage. But we want to make sure that we also really are careful with the fruit. There are some people that will avoid fruit in the early stages or have a very small serving, very small, 30 minutes before breakfast, so it can digest by itself, pass through, so it's not going to ferment with the other food. And this would be something like maybe a half a green apple or maybe a quarter or a third of a cup of berries, but it's very small. If you have a half a cup of blueberries, you need to look how much sugar, but there is a lot of sugar in a half a cup of blueberries. That's fine if you're not loaded with infections, but when you're loaded with infections, it's not going to make you feel well. So very limited fruit at the beginning. Fresh lemon juice, fresh lime juice are totally fine on your salads, having it in your water, but having very minimal nuts and seeds too, because this is one place where students really can, it can set them back. Let's put it that way. If you're eating a lot of almond butter or cashew butter or cashews or macadamia nuts, you're going to feel horrible. Trust me, I work with students all the time, and those are things that you have to really restrict and reduce. So things like macadamia nuts and cashews, I would avoid at the beginning just because they're a little bit higher in carbohydrates, and I find that they aggravate symptoms at the beginning. So maybe a few small number of pecans or almonds or pumpkin seeds because they're anti-parasitic also, but just a few of those. What else would there be? Filberts are really great also, but small amounts. 2 small handfuls, all right, in the day. And then be careful with the nut butters that there's no added sugar, and also it's really easy to eat too much nut butter. You can have a couple of tablespoons, twice a day, and that's too much. So keeping that down really low. And if you're the kind of person that you're like, I've had students, it's like, I can't control myself. If I have nuts in the house, I will just graze on them and I'll eat the whole bag. Then don't have them in the house until you get those cravings down. Very important. So we talked about the fruit, we talked about the vegetables. Now, as far as the meat, so it is not healthy to eat huge amounts of animal protein, but having small amounts is really important to keep your muscle mass, and to not just your muscle mass, but you'll find that your cognitive function will be so much more clear. Your brain will be clear. You will have strength and energy. And so that you want to pick good quality animal protein. So that would be things like grass-fed if you can. Many of us don't have access to grass-fed beef, and then just pick better quality. And I always take all the fat off of it because I don't like the fat. I don't buy all organic, and my students still recover if they can't buy all certified organic, because depending where you live and depending on the expense, it isn't always feasible. So you will get better if you are not only buying organic. Try to pick the best quality. If you can get organic, great. So for me, I like to get leaner cuts of meat. It's not that I don't like the fat, is that I know that if it's not grass-fed, then I know they fed that animal GMO corn probably, and I don't want that fat. So I just reduce the fat, but I add in good healthy fat. So this would be like the grass-fed butter or the extra virgin olive oil. And there's lots of different types, extra virgin coconut oil. So there's lots of different fats that you can add in. And if you go in the health food store, the key is you want to find cold pressed, extra virgin, organic oils, all right? You do not want to have something that is really processed, because that's not good. Those are not healthy fats either. And remember that some fats do better with cooking and others don't. So extra virgin olive oil is not good to cook high heat with, because it will denature the fat and then it becomes a bad fat. So things like avocado oil is more heat stable. It can handle higher heats, or even coconut oil, or even butter. But the extra virgin olive oil, that would be more that you would put on at the end when you're done cooking, or you could put it in your salads. So we talked about the healthy fats, and we talked about the vegetables and the animal protein. So any types of animal protein, whether it's chicken, fish, beef, you can eat pork. I don't love pork myself personally. That's just a personal thing. But having, what I think is really healthy is to rotate everything, to have different healthy fats, to have different vegetables, having different types of animal protein, and just moderate amounts of animal protein. But when you have protein and healthy fat with every meal, and you also add enough vegetables, then you'll find that you are sustained for hours, you feel energetic. And so at the beginning, if you have been a sugar burner, if your body is a sugar burner, it's going to take a little bit of time to shift over, but your body will shift over. I didn't think I could do it. I'm slim, and I thought, how can I not have my quinoa and my brown rice? But I found that I have a lot more energy. I feel a lot better this way. I can have it occasionally, right? But I don't have it all the time, and I don't have it very often. I follow this eating plan pretty much all the time. So I might have maybe one serving in a month of quinoa, but I personally feel better this way. I could eat it more often, and I followed this eating plan at the start because I really wanted to understand what my students were going through. I really wanted to know, like, what does it feel like to follow this? And it feels really good. So, all right. So that is the eating plan. As far as that, we need enough protein, and we want to make sure it's complete amino acids, because that way we feel a lot better. And the problem is, if we're eating a vegetarian diet, I don't have anything against it. It's just that when you're cutting the tofu out and you're cutting all the dried beans, legumes out, and you're just having low carb vegetables and you're not having the grains, it's pretty hard to, number one, get enough calories, and number two, to get complete proteins, because you're not having all those other foods. So it's more challenging. So sometimes people that are pretty much vegetarian, what they'll do for the recovery phase is they'll add in some eggs, they'll add in a little bit of fish, just so that they keep their muscle mass and they get enough calories and they feel well. And remember, if we're slim, we have to eat often enough. We have to add enough fat calories. So we don't have to get the calories to keep our weight on from carbohydrates. We have to get them from healthy fats. So for myself, I have big heaping plates of vegetables, and I just pour on the oil, etc. And I just add on liberally the wonderful healthy fats. Now, if you are slim and you don't want to lose weight, then you just have to eat enough calories. And as I mentioned, there are more calories in fat than there are in carbohydrates. So it's just, if you don't want to lose weight, you eat more calories, and so you're just adding on more healthy fat. But also make sure your plates are not, like 1 or 2 small servings of vegetables on a plate. You want to make sure that you have a big heaping plate with 2 to 3 different types of vegetables, some animal protein, and you're set to go. Never skip meals. Never skip snacks if you don't want to lose weight, because you will lose weight. Right, I think I've shared everything with, one big thing. This nutritional ketogenic eating plan, it's very beneficial to track the total grams of carbs you're eating for a day or two, just so you have an idea of where you're at. So what you want to have the total grams of carbs below 50 grams of carbs, all right? And my students, the sweet spot of where they found that they're recovering quicker is when they have their total grams of carbs closer to the 35 to 40 total grams of carbs. So they will go on to an app on their phone, and they will measure the total grams of carbs of the foods they're eating in a day, because remember that there are carbs in broccoli. not as many, but there would be carbs in broccoli and in carrots and in avocados. All the vegetables have carbs. Maybe the green vegetables, like the green leafy vegetables, will have less carbs, whereas avocado, carrots, cabbage will even have a little bit more. And be careful with the cherry tomatoes because they have a lot of natural sugar. So my students are really careful with them. They might take 1 or 2 and cut them in little pieces and put on their salad, but don't have 5 or 6 cherry tomatoes because that's going to be a lot of natural sugar. So tomatoes, so with those vegetables that we can eat, we just put them in our salad, but we don't have them as a big portion because we find that it pushes us over that 50 grams of carbs per day, or if you want to get it down a little lower and recover quicker, it's getting us way too high. It's getting us away from that 35 to 40 grams of carbs per day. So there is the USDA website. You can check them out and you can put in any food and they'll tell you how many grams of carbs are present in the food you're eating. Or you can use an app on your phone like Chronometer. I think it's free from what my students say. And you can track the total grams of carbs, not the net, the total for us. That's where we're finding with the students is if you're in the below 50, but especially if you're between 35 to 40, that's kind of the sweet spot where all these students are noticing all their symptom improvements, all right? So be very careful with things like avocados. They are so good for you and they are high in fat, but they're also a little higher in carbs. So if we eat a whole avocado a day, that might be getting our grams of carbs up to around, like just with the avocado, it could be like 20 grams of carbs, and that could be half of our daily intake of carbs. So my students will take an avocado and they'll take a few slices, maybe 2 or 3, put it on their salad, and that way it's not pushing them over the top. So things like, again, avocados, carrots, beets. Be careful with cabbage too. Cabbage is okay, but just don't have too much of it. But just, this is where, when you track it for a day or two, you're going to understand. You'll say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that, 1 cup of cabbage has so many grams of carbs. It's really healthy. But remember, we want to make sure that we keep everything in that sweet spot range, because that is just the first step, right? There's many more steps, but it is a powerful step, because when you nail the eating plan, you're going to find that it's a lot easier to treat the infections, all right? Super important. So I think I've shared everything with you. I'm going to check to see if you guys have any questions, and I'm going to say hi to a few people here. Okay, so hello to Danielle and Megan and Margaret and Gwendolyn. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly. Sharon, Rick, Kathy, Sandy, Tiffany. Hi, Deb, Wanda, Celia. I see there's some wellness champions here. And Joseph, Tammy, Megan. So I know that some of you don't have questions because you know this eating plan really well. But Megan, I have Lyme and all of the videos have really helped me. You're so welcome. I'm so happy that they've helped you. Because the key is, you're so welcome. The key is that the first step, I believe, is to really have a deep understanding of what's causing our disease. Because otherwise, you're not really going to believe that this eating plan is helpful, because you don't really understand why we're doing this. But when for those of you that haven't started on this journey to become a wellness champion yet, when you sit down with that big bowl of popcorn or that big piece of pie or ice cream, now you're going to start to think, oh my gosh, when I eat this, those microbes that are causing my spasticity, that are making me disabled, that I can't walk, they are going to binge with me. And they're going to produce a lot of inflammation, and they're going to make me feel so much worse. And then it's going to be much easier for you to say, I think I'll skip that, right? Hello, Aram. And Kelly B. and Norris and Patty and Sybil and Deborah and Paula. Maureen, this makes so much sense. And you actually feel better when you don't eat. That's true. Isn't that true? When we're sick, sometimes we just feel like, man, if I didn't have to eat, I know that I would feel so much better, but we have to eat, unfortunately, because we can't live if we don't. But I'm so glad it makes so much sense to you, Maureen. Hello, Stephanie. Yes, Maureen, isn't that exciting? Wow. So the key is, number one, if this is the first time you found me, then make sure to watch my master class training. And that way you will learn if you are ready, if you are sick and tired of living with this and you want to treat those infections, make sure to watch my master class training, and then make sure to book a time to chat with me if you're ready. And you can start right away. You can join these wellness champions and you can start on the road to recovery. And with, like I said, within 2 to 3 weeks or less, you're going to start to see improvements, and that gets people excited. It gets them fired up, and it really helps them to push through the beginning phase, because living with all this spasticity and pain and agony is not fun. So you'll see in right above and below this video, actually it'll be below this video, you are going to see my link to my masterclass training, and with that you're going to be able to start on this journey if you're ready to be a wellness champion, just like all those wellness champions that are right now currently working with me. And we have, I'll have to look at the numbers, but I'm sure at least 75 students from all over the world. So exciting. And these students that are noticing improvements already, it's because they're following the eating plan really, really well. All right. So Carmen, hello. My daughter was diagnosed last year. She is 7 years old. I am so sorry, Carmen. I really hope that you reach out to me, because you can completely change the course of her life if you treat the cause, all right? And I have so much. I've got the evidence document for you. It's a web page so that you can see a ton of research showing that MS is an infectious disease. Watch my master class training. Look at all of the different videos, the shorter videos I have, one with multiple sclerosis and fungus, one with multiple sclerosis and Lyme disease, multiple sclerosis and parasites, multiple sclerosis and viruses. When you go through that, you'll just be like, oh my gosh. So you can completely help your daughter to recover. I'm so happy that you found me, Carmen. Paula, how long have you been following this eating plan? Oh, how long have they? So all of those successes I shared at the beginning of our time together here, they have been on the eating plan depending. I have people joining the program all the time, but we generally see symptom improvement within 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes within the first week, all right? But to be on the conservative side, say 2 to 3 weeks, we see energy improving. We see people, their bladder issues settle down very, very often. Also, people are sleeping through the night better. They have more sound sleep. Their mood improves. There are people that are noticing some slight improvements in their mobility. And that is super, super fast. I don't expect that. But when I see, like with our student in Israel who's not using her walker around the house, that's amazing. Spasticity starting to just soften a little bit. But there again, it's so important to work with a mentor, to work with a coach, because what you're going to do is you're going to take the advice I gave you and you're going to implement it, and you might start to notice some improvements, but that's just the first step. And also, if you follow it really well, then you could have so many more improvements just with that step. But then you want to kill the infections, because if you go through high periods of stress, if you have a fall, if you have a bladder infection, if you have I'm trying to think of other things. Not sleeping is another big one. If you're not sleeping, all of these situations are going to make those infections stronger, even when you're following this eating plan, and you will still progress. So what this eating plan does, it's just a prep to start getting those infections, putting them on a fast, making them a little less active, a little weaker, so we can hit them. That is the goal, right? And then we do a lot of other supporting the body in various steps. So we want to, I've shared on other calls too, is that the eating plan is number one. Then number two, what we're going to do is correcting nutritional deficiencies and making sure we optimize physiology as far as thyroid and adrenals and B12 and iron, making sure your body is running well enough. And then opening up detox pathways. We want to make sure we're eliminating things. Otherwise, when you get to the killing phase, you will feel sick. So we want to make sure we're eliminating well, we're sleeping well, and all of those things have to be done first. Cleaning up big items in the environment as far as heavy metal, mold, and radiation. And once we are ready, then we start looking at okay, what symptoms do I have? Looking at the health history of my parents. And so when we look at all of that, it becomes very clear what you need to treat first. And then it's about the treatment and as far as what you want to use. And a lot of my students use, there's many, many different things. And I don't want to talk about that now because that's a huge topic. But there are herbs, there are herb blends, so herbals. There are pharmaceuticals. There are probiotic therapies. So those are good guys that kill bad guys. There's enzyme therapy. There's electromagnetic therapy. There is light therapy. There are oxygen therapy. So there's so many different ways that we can knock these infections back, and we have to use strategy because by the time we have multiple sclerosis, ALS, Parkinson's, any of those really serious chronic diseases, cancer, all those diseases, we know that the infections are not just in our blood and not just in our intestines, they are deep in our tissues. So we have to chase them out, we have to bait them out, we have to use preparations of herbs that are dissolved in fat so that it gets deeper into our tissue. So that is why it's complicated. So you can either go to a clinic that treats infection and you can spend $30,000 to $40,000 or more, or you can learn this yourself. And yes, you're still possibly going to work with healthcare professionals at times, but you can do so much on your own. It's so much more cost effective. And the big thing is once you recover, then you know how to take care of yourself. Then you know how to make sure you never end up in this position again. All right. So hello, Sarah and Tammy and Selma, Patty, Megan. Omegas, fish oils daily. Yes, they're great to take. Omega-3, absolutely. I think peanuts are no-no, absolutely. Peanuts are not, because peanuts are a legume and they tend to have a much higher mold content or amount of mold in them. So we avoid all the peanuts for sure. All right. So is there a reason that cashews are on the diet but peanuts are not? And now I explained it already. So peanuts are notorious for having higher mold counts in them. But remember that with the cashews, I always say with my students is that if you have a couple of cashews, you know, but they're usually a lot higher in carbs. So be careful not to be eating a lot of cashews. And also the macadamia nuts, I find they can be really difficult because they're so tasty. And the cashews too, so it's so easy to overeat them. And if you eat too many, you won't feel well because they're harder to digest. All the nuts are harder to digest. So if you eat a lot of them and they go down to your intestines and they feed the bad microbes, you will feel it. Yeah, you guys are giving me hearts, you know that. All right. And so there's a little bit of sugar in your almond milk. Should you cut that out? Yes, my students don't have almond milk because it is quite challenging to keep the carbs to around under 50 for sure, total grams of carbs under 50, but between 35 to 40, somewhere in there seems to be really awesome. Thank you for the love. And they don't even drink almond milk or obviously not rice milk, and we stay away from soy milk. So we want to save our grams of carbs for foods that are high in nutrition. So the vegetables, because there are a lot of nutrients in vegetables that are antifungal, anti-cancer. So we want to get high nutrition, and almond milk is not really nutritional at all. And they're not having cereal, so they really don't need almond milk. So it's kind of a waste of your calories, not your calories, because we're not doing calories. Calories are fine, but it's your total grams of carbs. What about dairy? If you're having butter, most people tolerate butter, but if you don't, you can also clarify the butter where you're separating the fat from the milk in it. So most people do tolerate butter, but that would be the only one. But if you're still questioning, you can totally clarify the butter also. Yes, Celia, she shared, for myself, 8 days on the plan and my body stopped aching constantly. Way to go. The only dairy that you're having is butter. Excellent. Yes, there's lactose also in butter, but there's various reasons. Anyone who has chronic disease, they know that you have to avoid dairy products. but butter seems to be okay. But there again, if you're not improving well enough, then you might want to clarify. And it's called ghee. You can actually buy it as ghee in the health food store and possibly in some different specialty stores. So hello, Elizabeth and Dawn. Someone mentioned almond cheese is good for me. I personally would stay away from that. We don't do any baking with nuts and don't make any cheeses with nuts, and just eat your food. And that's another thing. We don't have smoothies. We just chew our food. Did you know that when you chew your food, when you clench your teeth together, it opens up the detox pathways in your brain? And those of us that have neurological diseases, our brains need to be detoxed. So chew your food. Whenever we grind up smoothies and we put carrot juice or whatever, a little bit of fruit, we are pre-digesting the sugars, and that is not good. That will feed the infection. So no smoothies, absolutely, if you want to recover as fast as possible. And absolutely no goat cheese, and no, like I know that there's these recipes where you can take cauliflower, you cook it, and you take all the moisture out of it, and you can make it into breads. We don't do that. We just eat food as close to the natural state, let it have its water in it content, and eat it that way, because you're going to find that if you concentrate even cauliflower, you're going to be eating a lot more than you naturally would, and you're going to be really increasing the total grams of carbs. So just keep it really simple. How to make it fun. What I'm going to do next Wednesday is I'm going to have another Facebook Live, and because we're heading into the holidays, to the Easter holidays, I'm going to be sharing a meal idea for a holiday that is compliant with this eating plan. And I get inspired by my future son-in-law. He is a chef, Chris Barton, and he owns a beautiful restaurant in Calgary. It's called A New Table. And whenever we get together as a family, I am so blessed because we all help and we watch, but he has so many beautiful ideas on how to make things taste so good and so fresh. And if you're ever in Calgary and you want to go to his restaurant, just call in before, because you should make reservations because they're really busy, and just say, hey, I'm one of Pam's students, and then he'll make sure he takes care of you. Let him know ahead, because that way, but he cooks very similar to the way that we eat. But we're going to be inspired by Chris Barton, Chef Chris Barton, and he is amazing. He's trained in France. Yes, thank you for all the love. So, and I am super excited. So whenever we get together as a family, we are so blessed because he kind of takes over and we all help out. And I'll be sharing lots of really cool things to do to make food taste really good for the holidays. All right, so I think that's it. I'm going to let you guys go. This was a long one, but I know that the eating plan is super important for people. This is the first thing that people always ask. So your steps, what to do. Number one, if you have never met me before, make sure you watch my masterclass training. The link is in this feed above or below the video. Watch it, because I share all about the infections. I share a ton of case studies of wellness champions that have overcome multiple sclerosis. They have recovered. All right. So watch that masterclass training. And if you're ready to take back your life and join these beautiful wellness champions on this journey, then book a time with me, and I will gladly spend that time and help you to figure out if this is the best thing for you. And so those are the steps to take. Also, make sure to watch the replays of those Facebook Lives. They're now on YouTube also. The 5-part series about multiple sclerosis is an infectious disease, or multiple sclerosis is caused by infection. So you got lots to do. And I also have those 2 resources, which are the pages with all the resources. So it's a web page that you can share with other people, that you can share with your doctor. Just be aware, they probably won't have the time to look at it. You can print off some of it, but they will look at it then. But that is evidence that multiple sclerosis is an infectious disease. I have spent many, many hours collecting that together. And that is just a small sample of the research showing MS is caused by infection. And lastly, I have the resource that the benefits and the rationale about why a low-carb eating plan is so beneficial to help you recover from multiple sclerosis quicker. So that was a lot, but the big key thing is that if you want to get on the journey to get well, watch the masterclass training first. That is your first step. So I'm going to let you guys go. I'll be back Wednesday next week and we're going to have some wonderful ideas on how to enjoy our holiday celebration with our family and not compromise our health. So take care and bye-bye for now.